I woke up today to this, my most recent video taken down for both copyright claims, as well as YouTube saying I somehow uploaded my video via third-party API. Now, I am appealing that video, and if that works, I'll simply remove this one and keep that one, but needless to say, Threat Interactive worked hard to get this video taken down. Now, do I blame him? Who would, when the shadows is where all cowards prefer to hide? Which, in my opinion, just substantiates this video even further. Me, I prefer the truth out in the open. So, this is just the intro to the original video re-uploaded. However, I am removing the cuts to his page and images of him, nor will I be monetizing this video. To me, it's more important this gets out and stays uploaded as opposed to making a quick buck. Instead, when I make references to his page, I will simply add the links in the description down below with the given timestamp. Not ideal, I know, but this is where we're at. So, without further ado, enjoy the video. Okay everyone, today I'm going to be doing something I normally wouldn't do. However, I cannot sit by as an educator myself and watch someone grift for clicks under the guise of moral righteousness. I am of course talking about Threat Interactive. Threat Interactive came out of seemingly nowhere, catching the wave of Unreal Engine disparity and riding it into his own niche on YouTube. Even going so far as to call other creators ignorant and unknowledgeable, such as this video from Digital Foundry whose breakdown of anti-aliasing is much more fact-based and reasonable, contrasted with Threat Interactive's much more fear-mongered and flat-out pretentious video, a victim of the Dunning-Kruger effect to be sure. Now, I'll link Digital Foundry's video in the description down below as it's full of great information, and if you're truly interested in the subject, it's a really great watch. Now, first and foremost, I have to give Threat Interactive some credit. He knows how to get his videos out there, and his videos do share some good information. The problem, however, comes not in the form of the information itself, but the spin placed upon it. Like in this video at this point, where he takes 2 minutes to describe to you what LODs are, and makes out to be some sacred lost bit of information no one uses anymore. Most of his videos could be boiled down into shorts, and if he were sincere, they would be. However, Threat Interactive is on a mission, he says, to crowdfund money to fix Unreal Engine. However, if you check on his website, Twitter, Reddit, there's surprisingly very little information, just a few words on his donation page and some mention in passing in his videos. If you watch these videos, he speaks of developers as if they are out of touch, don't know what they're doing anymore, and somehow he has the answers, specifically calling out Epic while praising Sony every chance he gets. Calling them out for what, you might ask? Why, anti-aliasing, of course. And that pesky nanite, not to mention nanite's partner in crime, virtual shadow maps, ooh, spooky. But wait, who's here to save us? Why, Threat Interactive, of course, the grassroots corporation here to grift for your views and fix Unreal Engine for those terrible, terrible Epic developers. However, they're not a corporation. In fact, there are no business filings to speak of. There's not even a website with an official URL.
Hey, this guy's a great big fuck!
Sounds more and more like just one guy. One guy lacking experience himself in any sort of developmental process, instead relying on technical jargon to mask his own ineptitudes. Now, is it a crime to not be incorporated? No, not at all. I, for example, am just one guy with a channel in a sea of educational content. However, things get a bit weird when he refers to himself almost as if he's just the spokesman, the messenger for some shell company of saints, a mere apostle to the angels that command him. It's all just weird and lacks sincerity. If he just came out and said he has a startup where he's looking to develop his own brand of anti-aliasing, I could at least respect that. At least I could get behind that. However, the approach to the whole channel comes across shady, manipulative, and misleading. So into the meat of all this, the content. Here I am criticizing, but why exactly? What bits of information among his videos do I find misleading? What are my examples? Well, we can begin with his first video, where he speaks on his favorite subject, anti-aliasing. Now, when someone gives you 20 minutes of monologuing about blurry images while talking about anti-aliasing, you might start to think to yourself, he's right. These images are blurry. Anti-aliasing is bad. And Epic Games is gun-ho on anti-aliasing and upscalers because, well, they're evil. That's why. When in reality, anti-aliasing can really be explained like this. Your screen is made up of pixels. Pixels are square. Sometimes, though, you want a little spice in your viewing experience. Squares get boring. You want a rounded edge. Well, your screen only has so many pixels. And those pixels, again, are square. So what do? Well, this gap right here between these squares, well, we blur them to give them the look of a smooth curve. See, I didn't need 20 minutes, more like 20 seconds. Now, yes, anti-aliasing can be, in a way, boiled down to a blur of sorts, and if you zoom in times 200, the edges will look blurry, and then again, everything else on that screen will also look blurry. And that's where claims like this become just downright silly. If you go onto the donate page of his WordPress URL website, you'll see the ask is for $900,000 for graphic programmers to make a TAA free of blur. However, as described a moment ago, asking for your money to make an anti-aliasing with no blur would be like me asking you for money to make water that isn't wet. It just doesn't make any sense. Also, there are mega corporations with bottomless pockets and the best people working on this. Anti-aliasing isn't some pharma scam trying to keep you mad at gaming so they could profit. No, that would be Thread Interactive. If companies like Nvidia, for example, could make a blurless anti-aliasing, they would have done it by now. In fact, it's all in evolutionary development, ongoing and getting better, but more on that in a bit. There's FXAA, TAA, SSAA, MLAA, SMAA, Epic's TSR, and finally MSAA, where graphic bros all over pray at the altar of. Now, that's a lot, and if you're not familiar, all that might sound like a whole bunch of nothing, really. Now, we could break them down one by one, and maybe we will in another video, but all you need to know is that these are the different types. However, if you want the latest in anti-aliasing gossip, it would go something like this. The current fad is MSAA, which is an improvement from SSAA, which used to render an image at a higher resolution than downscale it. However, this was a costly effect, so MSAA was developed. MSAA is a process of doing the same thing, yet instead of blurring the entire image, it's only blurring the edges of the geometry, leading to smooth outlines but often jagged interiors. Meanwhile, Thread Interactive wants to make TAA great again, as it were, with his pledge to make a blurless anti-aliasing, which is ironic as TAA is a time-based or temporal blending method, meaning in essence it smears the frame between two images, notoriously creating ghosting issues, which is the same issue he made this entire video about.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
One of the reasons when you're playing a game you see multiple options for anti-aliasing is because developers know there are pros and cons with each type. So they allow you as the player to pick and choose the one that's right for you. And that's the thing about game development. It's in essence a pick your own adventure game in and of itself. There's no one size fits all best solution, best tool, nor process. If there was, we would all be doing it. Instead, game development is, as any developer will tell you, a series of picking and choosing the fights you win and dedicating your development strategy around that. The problem with modern gaming, as it were, is multifaceted, but one might sum it up by saying developers choosing graphics over systems means they're fighting for pixel-perfect pours and not frame rates. It's a conscious decision, and really, it's as easy as that. You don't need an entire channel dedicated to this, you don't need a degree, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at the visuals of games, look at the average frame rate, and understand what AAA developers value. I wouldn't even blame the developers per se, as who's really to blame between executive and developers falls at the feet of whomever happened to make the decision at the time for the game at that studio. And as far as DLSS and FSR is concerned, there are definitely reasons for and against these technologies, one which we can get into a bit later, but when you see NVIDIA's showcase and they show a table with some cups is running at 27 frames per second baseline, you know there's a problem. And it does become cyclical, with big developers wanting more pixels, players wanting higher frame rates, and these third parties offering solutions in the form of FSR and DLSS. Now, I could have dedicated an entire channel and used technical spooky jargon to convince you to subscribe to me while drip feeding you information via Nothing Burger videos, but there you go. Everything you need to know wrapped up in a single paragraph. Developer options are endless, not just in anti-aliasing, but in near every aspect. To use nanite or not, virtual shadow maps or not, baked lighting, Lumen, NVIDIA real-time GI, screen space, ray tracing, path tracing even. These are just some of the options, each of which comes with its own pros and cons and its own considerations when it comes to optimization. Does this mean developers are any less knowledgeable, that they've lost the secret art of optimized gameplay, or that studios, for whatever reason, maliciously want everyone to suffer with 30 FPS caps? No, Oftentimes it boils down to conscious decisions from the developers based on the specific process they're using to develop that specific game. And it's really as simple as that. So when I see channels like this, more often than not, it just screams snake oil salesman. Grifters who complain about a process they know little to nothing on other than what they've read in a book, while offering no solutions of their own other than the ones which you have to pay for, of course. There's also videos like this where he alleges to show his prowess by taking this scene and multiplying his performance. However, anyone, even most non-developers, can look at a scene such as this and tell you that this probably isn't correct. And if you look at the process used to optimize the scene, it's really just the standard basic practices every entry-level artist learns, which, if the video was simply to show someone how to optimize a level, perfectly fine. There are plenty of these videos on YouTube, they all have their merit. But that's not what he's doing here. So my question to Thread Interactive, to this individual, is, if developers have somehow lost the sauce to make optimal games, if you are the only one with the know-how, then why are you also just using the same old tricks the rest of us use? You often suggest in your videos how every other creator is out of touch and out to get you. Meanwhile, you mask your ignorance with technical jargon to farm clicks. All this aside, do I think Unreal Engine is perfect? No. Far from it, in fact. I can also go into tirades on optimizations they could be doing, or talk about the fact that Epic loves to throw out a shiny new toy every update without any sort of proper integration, support, or even update, such as the Water and Landmass plugin, which was released in 4.2.7 that was shipped out and seemingly just forgotten. The dirty little secret of Unreal Engine is that every large developer strips Unreal Engine to just the parts they need and essentially makes their own engine out of it.
We can rebuild it. We have the technology. But I don't want to spend a lot of money.
And the Unreal Engine that you and I use, the commercially produced Unreal Engine, is made to cast such a wide net to be so generalized that for your specific game project, it undoubtedly is going to have some bloat to the engine. Does that make them bad? I don't think so. Their goal, after all, is to make the most commercially viable product. However, I do think it would be nice if they release guides or even build versions for optimal development of specific types of games, but we'll save that for another video as well. So in conclusion, do I find this one guy who calls himself Threat Interactive to have the knowledge base to discuss the topics he's discussing? Yeah, yes and no. I think his videos are full of information. I mean, clearly, such as this video where he takes 20 minutes to essentially explain what a prepass is, as well as fail to acknowledge that screen space shadows never left Unreal Engine, they are now simply integrated into the contact shadow structure. However, I find his information to be more research-based, spun with a motive, yet lacking any sort of meaningful experience, all while speaking in a pretentious tone of conceit. Now, do I think he should stop making videos? No. In fact, I think his niche of information could be beneficial if he weren't spinning this web with an agenda. Now, how do I know these videos are grifts? I think the title and thumbnails alone kind of just tell you. And beyond that, he's seeking $900,000 to create something which I don't even think he thinks he can deliver. And look, grifting for the sake of grifting, when it's obvious, I'm fine with. Everyone loves a good troll and I'll laugh with the rest of them. But it's when your videos are framed in a way which seeks to mislead and manipulate the audience you yourself are relying on while you stand pious on a pedestal seeking money, that's when I take issue and that's when I have to call you out. To those who have watched all the way through, thank you. I know I ramble, but usually not that long. If you're familiar with my channel, you know my entire thing is education, information, and no nonsense. All I want is for each and every one of you who have dreams of developing games or working in film to achieve those goals, and that's all I've ever been about here. If you like this video and want to see more like it, maybe not going after another channel, but giving industry insight from someone who is actually in the industry, let me know in the comments down below. As always, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.